All right, we are back here on the podcast talking some Mets baseball as they try and finish off what would be an improbable comeback and make the postseason after a disastrous first month of the season. Joining me today, great friend of the podcast. He's the creator of the Apple NYM, the Mets blog, is a podcast also tied to that. Tim Ryder is here. Tim, how are you?
Doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me back, man. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure talking here. And obviously, we're recording the middle of this series of the Nationals here. The Mets won in walk-off fashion last night, 82nd win of the year. Big note, this game, obviously, Francisco Lindor did not play. Seems like they dodged the bullet with the back injury. Maybe he'll be back by the weekend here. So I think the thing I noticed with the Mets, especially the last few days when Lindor's been out of the lineup, everybody loves to complain about Lindor in the past, about, oh, he's making too much money, like he's not a heart and soul of his team. We've seen now over the course of this year, he's in the MVP race, like how important he is to this franchise. And Lindor, I think, finally has won the fan base over with this year.
Oh, I don't see how he hasn't. I know there were a lot, and I'm sure that the salary was tied into it, but there were a lot of doubters. And he started slow this year. Started incredibly slow for like the first week. I think he was, one for third one. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but really slow start. And like a light switch, he turned it on, and slowly but surely, everyone really started to realize who this guy is. He's playing arguably the best baseball of his career. That's including his time in Cleveland. It's really, it's great to see. You know, I think even the doubters have had their minds changed here, and the people who have kind of been in his corner this whole time, like, no, 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 in the right situation, he can be that guy, and he truly has been. I mean, even going back to last year, but now he's finally starting to get the recognition. It's cool to see, and for the Mets, it's been the difference maker. I think him being in that MVP conversation and him playing that caliber of baseball, it's propelled them to new heights. His dedication to success, winning, consistency, doing all the little things right. That reverberates through a roster. And I think that the guys around him respond well to it. And the veterans in the room kind of reverberate that throughout. And there's so many young guys and they're picking up on it. And yeah, arguably Francisco Lindor is at the center of all that.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And obviously, there have been a lot of surprise with the Mets this year, whether it's the Jose Iglesias coming up, hitting 300, basically getting himself almost everyday time. You got Mark Vientos coming out of the Myers, grabbing third base. The amount of clutch hits they've had. What is the biggest surprise you've seen out of this team this season?
I mean, honestly, you can point you put Jose Iglesias has to be at the top of the list. He was him and Luis Torrens too. I mean, these guys were brought in, almost afterthoughts, and their contributions. I mean, of course, Iglesias more so and in more of a spotlight fashion than Torrens. But what Torrens has done has been downright impressive as well. And I think that you can kind of give nods to both of them. The starting rotation, I mean, I was big on Severino's potential for a comeback when they first signed him. It looked like he had figured something out. I want to say towards the end of last season, or I want to say when he came back from injury. I forget exactly, but I had reasonably, respectable expectations for him for Severino. I think what Manaea has been able to do, coming in, and most fans were very, oh yeah, well, whatever, it's just depth. He's anchored this rotation. Quintana's been an anchor as well, maybe albeit not as consistent. Manaea has been, at least over this recent stretch, ace level stuff. I would have to put him at the top of my list because I don't think anybody expected this type of level of production.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the starters up here because many of us fans, like going into the season, thought, "Oh, this is a weakness of the team." Like you're hoping some of the guys hit, and now you're looking here down the stretch and saying, "Oh, like Sean Manaea has turned a corner. Luis Severino has been like hit a reclamation hit. Jose Quintana's pitching well down the stretch. David Peterson has surprised everybody. So you have to put your chip right now and say, I trust X the most. Which starter are you pegging for that? Who do you think is the most trustworthy Met starter at the moment?
I think it's neck and neck between Minaya and Severino. I think that the um the power of internal competition among this rotation cannot go understated. I think that the next guy wants to match what the last guy did. And down this recent stretch, I mean, since September 1st, I think they have a 2.03 ERA as a rotation. Told you I was doing a little research on my way home. Uh, that's only behind Cincinnati, even going back to the middle of August. And again, this is crunch time. The Mets are fighting for their lives, their playoff lives. 2.85 ERA just behind Atlanta, who they're neck and neck with leading down the home stretch. So, you know, I think who I would put more confidence in at this point, just because of his recent just excellence, would it's got to be down to those two, Severino and Minaya. But Minaya, I love his delivery. I love the way he mixes things up. I don't know if you read Tim Britton's interview with Severino this week, but Severino broke down a whole start, and that was intriguing reading. And I love the way Severino thinks as a pitcher, and I love the almost the vibe he's brought to the rotation. Because again, that internal competition, it's alive and well. You could feel it. But Minaya, just his ability to adapt on the fly, him messing with his pickoff moves earlier in the season when guys were really starting to run on him. Now he's kind of switching up deliveries, and his ability and willingness to adapt in a sport that everyone is so stuck in their ways. Yeah, I look to him right now to be that guy. If the Mets can make it into the dance, you're going to see a top three rotation combined of the two guys we were just talking about. But Minaya from the left side with that funky delivery and all the different junk he can throw at you, Minaya.
Yeah, Manaya's been in revelations. The guy has been in revelations, Mark Vientos, who last year kind of got like the yo-yo between AAA and the majors, never really got an opportunity to play. The Mets gave him the third base job in end of May and said, okay, here you go. And he's basically taken it and ran with it. He's played solid defense, hit 24 home runs, had some clutch hits as well. Like, I got to say, another big thing that people don't realize here, Mark Vientos' emergence and grabbing third has really been a big key in the Mets salvaging that season here.
Oh man, I will admit when I'm wrong. I didn't see Mark Vientos more as a premier power threat, of course, but I didn't see him as much more than a power threat. I didn't see this type of consistency, gap to gap, line to line hitting. Extremely solid defense, really impressive arm. Like, I was looking at Beatty. I was looking at Brett Beatty as that guy. He had higher pedigree. His bat was grading very well. He played in the Arizona Fall League. He did really, really well there. And that's not to say that Brett Beatty can't be. He's under contract for many years. Can't say he won't be a part of this organization or even just a future solid major leaguer. But yeah, it's fair to say Mark Vientos has cemented himself at third base, at least for the foreseeable future, until he loses the job. Because, man, everything he's been asked, he's done, and then some. You hear all the stories and reports of him just, going to veterans and trying to soak up their knowledge and just be a sponge and get it from everywhere. And he doesn't get too high, too low. You see him in a slump. He doesn't last there very long. He's snapping out of it. He's snapping out of it with power, with emotion. Yeah, he's a ball player, man. When you have to put on your list of surprises, Vientos has to be up there as well. But you cannot be happier or prouder as a fan watching his progress.
Yeah, obviously, another thing to keep an eye here is as this week the Mets are the final homestand of the regular season here, could theoretically be Pete Alonso's last week at Citi Field, which obviously, like this year has not gone as according to plan for him in terms of the walk year. Like, he has 32 homers. A lot of them feel like empty homers. Struggle in the big spots here. Like, I know beginning of the season I thought there was no way Alonso leaves, but I feel like as the years go on, I see it's like the likelihood is higher and higher. The Mets decide, you know what, like, we have a number, we're not going to go past it to keep him. Like, what do you think about the chances that this might be the last season of Alonso in New York?
Well, it's always a possibility. He's played. I want to say he's still up to. He's played every game so far this season, so that's a testament to what he's trying to do, what he's trying to accomplish. the image he's trying to portray heading into the open market. I do, you have to believe that there's interest in returning on both ends, but to your point that there's got to be a price point or a limit. um, I couldn't agree with that much more. um, he's a really unique situation as far as his contract. um, elite power hitter, there's no questioning that, and when he's right, which he'll go on a hot stretch for 2-3 weeks at a time, maybe even a month, when he's really really on fire. But I don't want to say he's one dimensional, because he's not. But power supersedes everything else in his game, and you can't pay him like he's a full service ball player, giving you 280, 300 batting averages. And don't get me wrong, Pete plays great. All those intangibles that you want, he's got them. It should be a no-brainer for the Mets to keep him in the fold. But he's got Boris as his agent now. You have other first basemen who are top flight guys. Everyone's looking at Goldschmidt, but you can't pay him like Goldschmidt, because he's not the player that Goldschmidt is. People want to say, oh, but he's got more home runs than Aaron Judge. Well, he's certainly not getting Judge money. So, I'm very, very intrigued as to where this all plays out, how this all plays out. I'd love to see Pete back. I'm sure most Mets fans would. It's not our money to spend, so if they overpay for him, I think I'm fine with that. I'm sure most fans would be. But you really can't guarantee where his career is going to go from here, because he's not. How do I put this? He's not built for. Maybe he is built for longevity, because he's only that specific type of player. But it's this is going to be a really, really unique contract situation. I do hope the Mets are in. I would be okay with them overpaying, but yeah, to your point, there's got to be a price point. I'm sorry if I droned on there, but I got in my own head with that answer.
It's all good. It's a very complicated question, because this sort of is a thing. You look at the Mets situation with the lineup here, where they've been productive in most part of the year here, but there's a lot of potential free agents in the mix here. You have guys who could potentially be traded in the offseason. Of their current group here, give me a number. How many guys you think in the current lineup mix will be guys they're looking at next year? Say, oh, this is the opening day 2025 lineup. These are guys I have in here. How many you feel?
Well, that you're going to have a bunch of the arbitration eligible guys still around, unless CJ Stewart's probably a non-tender candidate. I would say maybe Sean Reed Foley could be a non-tender candidate, but I'd also like to see him around. He wouldn't cost much. I think he's still got some arbitration years left.
I meant just the bats in terms of these position players.
Oh, my apologies. Just the bats. All right. So you have to wonder if JD Martinez comes back. I hope they do, and I hope they get him at a good price point. It seems like he likes to be here. It seems like his effect has been a great thing. I could talk about the pitchers, but I guess that's kind of tough. Let me get my list here.
I think, in my opinion, I feel like there's 4 locks in the group. I feel like it's the 2 guys, the big contracts, Lindor and Nimmo, and then you have Alvarez and Vientos. I think, other than that, I can't call anybody a lock here. I feel like there's certainly scenarios I can see where McNeil gets traded, where Marte gets traded, where Pete doesn't come back. I think you're only have 4 locks out of the 9. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I guess Marte's under contract through next season, so it's very interesting to see how that shakes out, especially if the Mets have some decent outfield prospects coming up. They're probably going to be active in the winter. McNeil, he's at $15 million through 2026, $15 million per and change through 2026. If you take second half McNeil and he's making $15 million, and he can still be the utility guy that he was, even in some fashion, and hit like he was in this second half of the season before he got hurt, I would take McNeil back. I'm trying to think of the guys like Winker. Jesse Winker is a guy who's a free agent at the end of the year. I bring him back in a heartbeat. I think he is a great fit for this team. I want to say he could have an option, but I'm not positive about that.
Yeah, I don't think he does, but certainly interesting conundrum they're going to be in with the bats here. But those quick grades here, a couple of guys here. Year one of Carlos Mendoza, I feel like it was trending very bad early, but I feel like, yes, he's had some growing pains. I feel like he's shown for the most part that he's a guy that you feel like the organization can grow with as a skipper.
Yeah. Oh, I would say that's a strong A minus. He's made some decisions that, of course, hindsight's 2020, and every manager is going to say make a decision and then maybe get that decision wrong. It happens. More often than not, he's pushed all the right buttons, traversing them through May, through just one of the worst months as a Mets fan I've ever seen. And having them come out at the other end, um, you know, sparkling clean with a strong rotation and an offense right now that's struggling, but that's been doing wonders. I mean, he's gone from, oh man, is this guy going to last, to very, very strong National League Manager of the Year candidate. Whether he gets the final nod for that TBD, but he should be in the mix. Absolutely. That's how good he's been.
Yeah, another one that's feel like has aged well over the years. Like I feel like a lot of Memphis not feeling David Stearns early in the season, especially with some of like the moves were not working out, whether it was like a Joey Wendell, where it was Jorge Lopez, but like they've done pretty well. I mean, like this, like he seems to have hit on all of his starting pitching acquisitions in the offseason. He's done well with the solid deadline moves, and feel like for the most part, like he's gotten in a position where like he's shown the ability he can find underutilized talent and put the Mets division to overachieve compared to what we thought going in the preseason. So I feel like David Stern's also is on as stock up right now.
Oh man, I mean, his willingness to cut loose on guys, and I think he probably brought these guys in with the knowledge that, yeah, you might not be here the whole season, but like, all right, like the most he spent was for Adrian Hauser. That was $5 million. He dropped 3.5 on Fujinami, 2 million on Wendell, 2 million on Jorge Lopez. Then you had like Julio Teheran who came in. I think they brought Bickford was already on the thing. Jake Diekman, brought him in, sent him going. His willingness to say, okay, you know what?
Didn't work.
We have someone else in. I think that was evident if you were looking at it through the right lens from the start. You knew this was going to be a very strange year as far as building a roster. They had so much money on the books and so many spots to fill. It was so much dead money. What he did, and doing it with all of the right moves. Oh, this isn't working out. Boom, you're out. Let's pivot. And he's done it so many times now that, yeah, I don't know how you can doubt his skills at his job at this point. Super, super impressive. I'm really interested to see what he does heading into the winter.
Yeah, the winter's gonna be fun here. I feel like last year they're kind of like, okay, like the market's not great. We don't love what's out there. Like, let's, kind of, take some 1 year plays. It pays off great. If not, we have trade chips. And now you feel like the wallet's coming out. You feel like the checkbook's coming out. There's a lot more guys who fit their specific needs these offseasons than there was last year.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think that between free agents, between possible trades, because now the Mets have some capital too, because they have guys on their roster that they can move, that they don't need to say, oh, yeah, we have prospects to trade you. No, we can offset some money. We could do whatever. And I think he's the right guy to be making that charge as well. But if you look at their payroll for next year, this year, I have it here. Hold on. This year, with their luxury tax, they paid $358 million. Next year, with the luxury tax, it's estimated to be around 165 to 170, depending on who you're reading. I like to look at Fangraphs, so I'm going to look at 170. If they want to inch towards the Steve Cohen tax mark, which I believe is,
I think it's in the 290s, I want to say.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was right there. I'm not sure if it increases. That's what I was just looking for. But I believe, if they feel that that they're that close, they will go over. We've seen them do it before. But even if they only have 220 million or whatever, where's my math at? I'm sorry, my apologies. 120 million to add to this team to hit that mark. I think that David Stearns can spend $120 million really wisely, man. And, you have to take into effect, like you said, you got Pete coming up on an extension. You got to wonder whether he's going to be down with some deferred money. Um, you know, I'm 125% confident, and that's tough to say for a Mets fan. But yeah, I'm really really excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I'm excited for what's to come here. And obviously, Mets very excited about right now because they are still in the postseason picture 2 weeks ago. And as of recording time, they're up a game on the Braves in the standings here, but they have a tough finish here. They got four at the Phillies this weekend. They got the big series in Atlanta. They got three in Milwaukee. Who knows what the Brewers are playing for at that point here? What do you think is the number the Mets need to hit to get in? You feel like is it 90 wins? Is it 88? Like, what do you think the number is?
Oh, I mean, it's an arbitrary thing. You just got to keep pace. They can go five and what do they got? 10 left?
Got 12
Yeah,
left.
11. 12 left. My apologies. They can go 6-6, and if Atlanta goes 5-7, they're in. So I mean, well, that's not necessarily true in a vacuum, but just as an example, I mean, you got to keep pace. Would you like to say, yeah, let's win 9 out of the next 12? Absolutely. This offense is due to wake back up. They haven't been hitting, so now would be the time. They're up against, this is like a nightmare scenario for a Mets fan. It's like, oh, cool, yeah, we made a run. We're knocking at the door. Look at the next week's schedule. And it's like, oh, geez, this is the gauntlet. This is, oh yeah, you're a playoff team. Prove it. Prove it. I'm sorry, I just knocked on my table. Prove it. This is the stretch. Prove it. If they can win 7, if they can win 8, I'm happy. If they go 9-3 over the next 12, I'd have to say they get in. They're only fighting with Atlanta. That 3-game series against Atlanta, I already have butterflies, and I don't get butterflies as a fan anymore. I don't. I thought that was long past me. Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be, peak Mets fandom. Everyone edge of their seats. It's gonna be every inning of the 2015 World Series, pretty much.
Yeah, it'll be certainly exciting to see next week, Tip. Thanks all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to keep up with your Mets coverage. How can I do that?
Oh, sure. I haven't been using social media so much, but if you want to follow along, I do post, occasionally. Timothy R. Ryder, that's on X, formerly Twitter. Um, the blog, which right now on hiatus, along with the podcast, we got some stuff going on outside of content creation, so we're just getting that all squared away. But the blog is the Apple. It's the Apple NYM. You can find us on Substack. Just search for the Apple Substack, and the podcast is Simply Amazin. Anywhere you listen to shows, we're there. We have 240 odd episodes up there. Feel free to get caught up because we'll be back very soon. And Mike, I can't thank you enough for having me on. I do apologize if we went over time, but I'm having that much fun with you. We always do.